Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode one of the Rectify Roundtable. Yes, I said episode one, but before we get to that and what this new Rectify Roundtable is all about, let's check in with Scott Anderson, my co host. Scott, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, Ty. I'm excited to be here. I feel like we've tried launching this a couple of times, but I think our plan this time around is a little bit better. So I'm excited to see what we've got ahead.
Yeah, I am very excited about this because we did the Rectify Roundtable before. And so we're calling this the episode one. But if you search YouTube and whatever, there are episodes of the Rectify Roundtable. We did about five of them back in like 2020, 2021, back when the pandemic was a thing. It was just like I was thinking about it, and it was so hard. Like
Y-
that was like intense production for like a small podcast if you think about
Yeah.
it, right? We did live podcasts and it was all esports themed. Like we did some cool ideas like getting casters on, like what's it like casting in esports and what's it like to
Mhm.
design in esports and all that. It was all cool, but like the production was insane. That was insane, right?
Yeah. Video podcasts are really tough. I do a podcast for work on a weekly basis, but it's just audio. And so, I mean, just knowing how much work that is for the audio side of things when we were trying to do the video, it just, yeah, man, like you're saying, it's hard to sustain that level of production when so many people are involved. So, I like what we have planned this time around, and we'll see how things go.
Yeah, for sure. And we do have a light like this is going to be a consistent podcast now. Is it going to be every week? No, it's probably going to be every 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. It depends on our scheduling and what we can do. But we want to get interviews with people around this industry, whether it's like voice actors, developers, different types of people working on games, maybe your favorite games, and make this thing a little bit interesting. And to simplify everything, we're not even doing video, we're just audio, and this will be exclusively on YouTube for now. So those who have been subscribing to our YouTube channel, welcome to the Rectify Roundtable. And those who have been looking at our YouTube shorts, we appreciate your support. Looking forward to the ride down the road. Really am. So on today's show, we have the Halo legend, Jeff Steitzer. Um, I did an interview with him a couple weeks ago before we started this recording, and it was an absolute pleasure to interview him. You may know him as the guy that goes triple kill, slayer, overkill, extermination. Now that was like a dollar store version of it,
Dude,
but
hey, no, dude, don't sell yourself short. That was actually pretty decent, man.
yeah, I mean, I've been doing it my whole life. I think I get it from my father because he would like whenever I would play Halo 3 in the living room, he would be like coming up to my TV and like trying to like imitate him. But we dive into like a lot of great conversations. But before we get to that interview, what we like to do in this new outline of the Rectify Roundtable, we want to talk about major news topics going around the industry. And I guess to start things off, Scott, we're going to talk about something that's not fun to talk about. I don't want to talk about this because it involves people's lives getting affected, people's families, and that is the industry is trending downwards with all these layoffs, and it's like not even hundreds, it's not even in tens, it's thousands. And this last week, EA said they're laying off 670 employees, while Sony Interactive Entertainment's laying off 900 employees. And Microsoft already laid off 2,000 to start this year. And the year before that, I think it was even more. And so this stinks. It's not even North America, it's across the world. I don't know,
Mhm.
Scott, I don't know if you have anything like to say. Like, I have never been in that position, but it just sucks.
So, I mean, I started my career in corporate communications and had been in that industry for about a decade. And I can't tell you the number of times that I was laid off in a very similar fashion. What's difficult about it is, despite how incredible these people may be at their jobs, the majority of these companies really, their first priority is making sure that their stockholders are fed. And like that sucks when you're thinking about how people's lives are affected. Obviously, thousands of people's jobs were lost throughout all these different companies over the last, geez, it feels like it's been about 6 months or so. But I mean, it really sucks, and it's hard to continually go back to the industry when this keeps happening to you. And I kind of changed what I do. I still work in communications, but I work for in government communications now. And fortunately, there are no stockholders there. Obviously, we work for the residents of the areas that we live in, but it's a lot different in that way. So, um, Look, I can definitely understand the outrage that people feel. Like I said, I've been there. This has happened to me multiple times. And it never is great looking for a job and feeling like those people likely, at least if they're anything like me, feel like they didn't do enough to justify themselves like staying where they were. But
Right.
again, with like a little bit of hindsight, it really likely has nothing to do with the employees, right? It has nothing to do with their performance. It has nothing to do, it's not just the video game industry. Obviously, that's what we're focused on
Yeah,
because
it's
that's
everywhere.
our favorite hobby, right? And we're looking at it all the time. But yeah, it happens everywhere. It happens very frequently, and it's a real kind of ebb and flow. Like I'm sure over the course of the next 6 months again, we'll probably hear about new studios opening or like hiring for different projects from all of these different studios.
But, like,
And
why should someone apply if they're gonna get laid off? That's kinda like the mindset you're setting for people.
yeah, and why should someone apply? Well, because they want to make money, right?
Right, right. Yeah,
Because
that's
they
right.
want a job, and I think it's important to go into. At least these companies are starting to frame it where it's important that their employees go into it almost expecting, right? Like, hey, after my big project's done, I should probably like already be starting to look for another job as the game is about to go gold, right? And that's a sucky way to work. Again, like I said, when I'm at a job and I feel like I still need to be looking for other jobs while I feel like I have like permanent employment, it's not great. But if the industry wants to change, they have to change what their priorities are. I just it's hard to see that happening when stockholders are involved and all they want to see is their stock keep going up.
Yeah, and, some of the studios involved with PlayStation are, like, Insomniac Games, Guerrilla Games, Naughty Dog. I think the London studio shut down, which is you don't
Hmm.
like to see that either. And it's going to affect the development time of games. And EA said they're going to focus on their successful games that are providing them money right now, which Apex Legends is just like a live service machine. They're making tons of
Right.
money. If
Yeah.
honestly, if they don't have Apex Legends and Respawn Entertainment, I don't think EA is even relevant anymore. Because like I don't know anything good EA has come out with over the last few years besides Apex and Star Wars content. And Star Wars Jedi is going to
Yeah.
continue with the third one. And of course, you have
And those games are good, man. Those games
yeah,
are really good.
those are
I
good.
had a great time with both of them, but I think to your point too, it's like, you know, how long are you going to keep this going until, you know, you're going to Apex is going to run its course
Yeah,
at
and
some
everything
point,
gets stale
right?
everything gets stale over time, right?
Yeah.
And I think battle royale is just gonna get stale eventually. I'm already sick of it, honestly.
Oh man, I fell out of battle royale stuff real fast.
Yeah, I think yeah, there's gotta be a new trend, coming soon. I'm just, like, so tired of it. And, like, even the Star Wars Jedi series made by Respawn Entertainment, and then you have EA Sports with EA. I look at EA and look
Mhm.
you have Respawn Entertainment and EA Sports, and now I know they have, like, DICE and, like, they're working on Battlefield, like, they have a studio working on Battlefield, but Battlefield hasn't proven to be any type of success, but there's rumored to be a Battlefield Battle Royale, but that might be late too, and the other part of these layoffs is that the Star Wars first-person shooter that was going to be a Mandalorian game, as reported, was canceled.
Yep.
So that's what sucks is that we're not gonna get new things. We're just gonna keep getting the old things, you know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
it's gonna take longer.
And I wonder too if this is going to change the way that developers start marketing their stuff. I mean, there was no reason for them to start talking about this Star Wars first-person shooter game, right?
Yeah.
Like it was so far out, and obviously it's something like people would get excited about, and that's great. But I mean, it got axed before we even saw. I don't even know if we saw any promotional images for it,
No, we
but
haven't. It was just, like, word to mouth.
yeah, so I mean, it's like, why are we even, this is like a bigger sort of conversation across the whole industry, but like people, organizations, developers announcing games like 6, 7, 8 years before they see the light of day. I mean, I understand you want to get people excited and have something to look forward to, but man, that's a really long time to wait for something. Not to mention, you know, probably about 50% of those are going to be canceled before you get much work done on them anyway. So I just wonder if it's going to change how these developers approach marketing their stuff.
Yeah, and I think these corporate fellows in suits love live service because they're just getting money, like stealing. I feel like it's the consumers in some ways, I don't know. They're not getting a complete product until like 2 or 3 years. And Halo Infinite's a perfect example. Microsoft is getting people on a contract work like 18 months and then they're done with their work on Halo Infinite. And 18 months to work on a AAA game is it's not long enough. And whatever they were working on goes on to the next person. They have no idea what that person was really working on, maybe, and how to continue. And so I think the whole live service is due for like a podcast episode on its own, like or a video, or that's something I could do. Or
Yeah.
I'll do like I don't like the live service. I think it ruins games. Like we see it with Halo, and we're seeing it with Forza and a lot of Microsoft games. But that's a conversation for a different day.
Yeah, well, and it's not just a Microsoft thing, right? Like there are
Yeah,
plenty of live service games across the industry. I'm trying to think of like a live service game that I have actually put a lot of time into. I guess you would consider Destiny 2 like a live service
yeah,
game, right?
yeah.
So like I put a lot of time into Destiny and Destiny 2, but I mean have since fallen off. It's been about a year or so since I've played it. But there are ways to do. Oh, and Final Fantasy 14, of course.
Oh yeah, that's an
I,
obvious
I, don't,
one.
I don't know why I typically saw anything about that. I was super into Final Fantasy 14 for a really long time, and still put out. See, I think that's a really great example of some a developer that provides you with just an outrageous amount of content, and then on a pretty regular basis, it's I wouldn't say frequent, but it's at least a regular basis. They provide excellent updated content that like keeps you going. And if you build out a world that it makes it worthwhile to do it, great. But I mean, I guess to your point, like Halo Infinite, like what are you doing? Like you're just
Yeah,
doing the same thing over and over again, right?
yeah.
And I feel like with Destiny 2, like it's a little bit different because usually they'll have like story stuff that they'll throw in there and open up a new planet, and like, but there's it's I'd say it's closer to Halo than it is to Final Fantasy 14 in terms of what it offers. No Man's Sky I think is actually,
Oh,
I mean,
that
you
game
know my
turned
feeling.
around big time, but it
Yeah,
took a while.
you know my feelings about No Man's Sky. Actually,
Yeah.
even when it initially launched, a lot of people weren't really on board with it necessarily. I'm still a fan. I actually did the review for it for Rectify Gaming.
Yeah.
I think I gave it like a 7 or something.
Yeah, it was
Like
something around that range.
not incredible, but not terrible. But I mean, you look at what that game is now, and I mean, it's only expanded its player base like exponentially since the beginning, and it's because I think they have the right approach to it, and they listen to their fans. It's a smaller studio, right, that puts it together, but they listen to their fans, and I think, do a really good job about trying to provide fans what they want within the context of like the overarching game itself, right? So um, yeah, boy, we could talk about this for a long time.
Yeah,
So
we
yeah,
could,
maybe we
and
move on to the next thing. But there's definitely a way to do live service games right. I think if you inundate the market with them, though, that's when things are going to fall off pretty quick. So it'd
yeah.
be great if we could keep those to a minimum. Keep those to a minimum.
Yeah, so, we're gonna get a little bit off that topic, but that's there's a lot going on clearly. Let's go into some positive news, and this company, people might be surprised, "Oh, they still exist? They're still relevant? They're still, almost dominating the industry? They have a better games lineup than Xbox?" And that's Sega. Sega is off to a hot start this year, and I feel like 2023 was also a good year for them.
Uh huh.
Persona 3 Reload sold 1 million copies in a week of its launch. I don't even know what it's at now, on March 2nd, but Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth sold over 1 million units. And let me add, Persona 3 Reload became the best selling game in Atlas's history. So
Mm-hmm.
those are big strides, man. And like Persona 5, I thought Persona 5 Royal may could have been a faster selling game, but obviously, or best selling game, but obviously not. Or yeah, well, like fastest selling. I mean, that was what it
Well,
was.
I mean, you're talking about like, see, this is my wheelhouse right here. I love what Sega is doing. I think Sega is really sort of reasserting themselves as like, hey guys, like we're not only are we like around, we're back, and we're kind of like you said, like starting to dominate part of the market.
Yeah, like
I'm. Oh,
oh,
go ahead.
if they
Go
had a
ahead.
console right now, it would be better. I would have a better lineup than I think Xbox and maybe PlayStation right now. Like, we're talking right now, but I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I don't know. Look, I mean,
Like, I'm talking about new games in a year.
right, right. So I don't know about PlayStation. PlayStation is doing a pretty good job putting out their first
Yeah,
party stuff,
right.
but yeah, I mean, look, I, I'm not an Xbox guy, but I've played Xbox games. I understand that some of the games that they're putting out are like decent, but honestly, over the last 2 years, I it's been a real dearth, man. I don't know like what is
It's
getting people excited for Xbox the last couple of years, but they do have they have a lot going for them still. Like despite the fact that some of the first party stuff they're putting out may not be like setting the world on fire, you still get Games Pass, right? And
yeah.
I think that's what a lot of people who are in the Xbox camp sort of hang their hats on, and that's great. Like,
It's a good
if that's
deal.
your
Don't
thing,
get me wrong.
then oh yeah, it's a great deal. You have access to a ridiculous amount of games that I could never, know it. You can't play all those games, right? There's just so many to have there. But I mean, just getting back to Sega, like I think the reason why Persona 3 Reload was so popular, one, the original Persona 3 is excellent, but Persona 5 really became sort of that mainstream entry for a lot of people into the Persona series. And, it I think it has sold a lot, but it didn't sell quickly. And so when all of those people who played Persona 5 and were like, oh my gosh, Persona is the greatest thing ever, which, yes, you're correct. When Persona 3 Reload, which is like kind of the next iteration that has come out since Persona 5, they're like, yeah, I want more of that. Like, give me more, give me more. And so, um, obviously, hey, hats off to Sega. Like, I
They're
was
doing it.
really excited to see it happen. I am eagerly awaiting Persona 6 if that ever comes out. But and then, like you also mentioned, with Like a Dragon and like the Yakuza stuff,
Yeah,
um,
I'm only on
people
Yakuza 0, so
people love those games, and like they're wacky and fun and ridiculous. But I guess the key word there is fun. Like they are really fun games to play, and you don't have to really be like paying attention. I guess unlike Persona, where it's like a little bit more serious and like the story is like really important and matters a lot. Yakuza, it does have good story elements, and it's just not as serious, right? So it's a little bit more of a
yeah.
fun romp than it is Persona, which is a little bit more, I guess, your drama fuel that you're looking for. But I'm not sure if you mentioned this yet or not either, but just the reboots they have in the works
Yeah.
for a lot of their older IP is really exciting too.
That yeah, like, even you add that on top of what they're making, and Persona 6 gonna come out in between those reboots, right? And
Hmm.
Persona 6, more rumors are coming out about it. Seems exciting, but we'll see when it's official. Like, Crazy Taxi is going to be, kinda like a live service thing that Sega's trying to do. It's gonna have, like,
Yeah.
a kinda like a battle royale with a 100-player mode. There's, like, gonna be a reboot and a remake that rumors are saying, and same thing with Jet Set Radio. They're gonna do some online elements with these games.
Hmm.
So, they're doing a good job, and I'm really excited. Like, those who have been following our YouTube shorts as of late, over the last few months might be thinking we're like a pro Sega website. No, but Sega's just doing like noteworthy stuff that we're like, that's worthy of reporting.
Yeah. Just
And
talk
like,
about the stuff that's happening, right?
yeah, and like they're also on top of that, they're doing the television shows and the movies for Sonic. And
Oh, we haven't even mentioned Sonic
I
yet.
know we
We're
haven't
talking
even
about
mentioned Sonic
Sega.
the Hedgehog, and
Haven't
they're
even
working
mentioned
on
Sonic.
Apple Arcade. Sorry, they're working on Apple Arcade games like exclusively for mobile, and then they're working with Netflix to get some games that way through
Uh-huh.
mobile. Sonic 1 and 2, phenomenal films. Sonic 3 comes out this year, December 20th, 2024, and Knuckles, the side TV show,
Oh,
which
right,
I'm
right.
also excited about, comes out April 26th, 2024. So I'm really excited. And recently, Sega started a transmedia venture. They hired former Disney executive Justin Scarpone to oversee, what they're going to be doing on the for their film and television. And so they
Hmm.
mentioned in the report that like Persona, like a Dragon, Angry Birds, now that they own that,
Oh, right, yeah.
making adaptations out of that. So they're gonna dominate. I think they're just gonna do their own thing. This is why Sega should create a console. This is
No,
what.
no, no, man. We don't need another console. But
Yeah, I know.
I really do appreciate what Sega's doing. I can't believe it took so long for us to talk about Sonic.
Yeah.
Like they'll come out with these like Sonic games every now and then, and they're just it's like soul food, right? Like it's just they don't set the world on fire, but it's just good fun to have. The movies, like you mentioned, one and two were both just they were just good movies. Um, it's like this upward trend of like the video game movie too, right? Because
Yeah.
you have Super Mario Brothers that was really good, and the Sonic movies have been really
And then
good.
we got Borderlands coming and all that
Oh, the
good stuff.
Borderlands TV show, yeah.
The movie,
That's
yeah.
is it a movie or is it a
Yeah, it's
TV
gonna be a
show?
movie starring
Oh
Kevin Hart.
man, oh man,
And Jack
right on.
Black is in it too. You can't have a gaming movie without Jack Black, and he's also gonna be in Minecraft too. So, that's gonna be very interesting. Also, is Sonic really better than Mega Man though?
No,
Sonic's no Mega Man.
no,
So,
no. The blue bomber is greater than the blue blur. All right,
yeah.
like let's just make that clear.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen our Scott's tier list yet on your YouTube channel, make sure to go check out that Mega Man tier list. Absolutely the correct list, right?
Without a doubt, without a doubt.
All right, so we're going from Sega, and we're gonna go talk about a company that people thought was gonna turn into Sega, and that's Microsoft Gaming, or you want to call it Xbox. So, all of like January and or early February, there were reports that notable like Xbox first party games were coming to PlayStation 5 and Nintendo Switch. And it turned out to be true, and it took like Phil Spencer and the crew there to take forever to address this through like the
Hmm.
official statement. It took forever to say that. So Hi-Fi
Right.
Rush, Sea of Thieves, and Pentiment and Grounded all are coming to those other consoles.
Yeah. How do you, as a mostly Xbox
Yeah.
gamer, how do you feel about that first?
So I think it benefits CFDs for like the play, like for like player wise, like it keep the game
Hmm.
alive. It'll
Yeah.
keep Rare busy with that, and it'll make them more money. Hi-Fi Rush, I was like almost shocked about. I thought that was a really good game. But more people get to enjoy it. Like I think games like Sea of Thieves and Grounded make more sense because they're live service games. You want to get more people playing. You want to make more money. So I guess from Microsoft side, they're not selling many consoles since Sony and Nintendo clearly are. So why not put the games on their consoles and make money? But like it was like at first the rumors kind of had me like, all right, what the hell is going on? Halo, Gears of War, Forza, Hellblade 2, Starfield, this and that are coming on board.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I think Halo would benefit going on to PlayStation 5, but that would just be a weird thing. What do you think of it? I was mixed on it, but I wasn't against like Sea of Thieves going.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of mixed on it too. I think the games that they mentioned, I'm sure there will be more like as time goes by, right? But at least the ones they mentioned, since that's what we know, we can talk about that. To your point, putting those live service games makes a lot of sense. Sea of Thieves, I think, um, to me, very similar to No Man's Sky. Like when it first launched, it was not like a great buzz around that game, but the developers have done a really good job sticking with it and kind of keeping that vision. And I have not played Sea of Thieves myself, but just from what I've heard from those who have, um, the content updates have been pretty consistent, and they're
Yeah, they're
just
very
constant,
consistent.
and they're just constantly improving the game. So I think that is good to get that on more consoles, so you can like improve that player base. Because ultimately, for a live service game, that's what you're looking for, right? You want as big a player base as possible. For a game like Hi-Fi Rush,
That game is
so
awesome, Scott. Like,
yeah,
you gotta
I
play it. That
oh
game is
I'm
awesome.
I'm very excited. I'm very excited to play it. I definitely plan on playing it when it does release. But to me, that seems like the right type of game to do this with, because what if I'm trying to like get into their heads, right? Like,
Yeah.
why are we doing this besides just making money, which honestly is probably the only reason they need. But to me, it's let's show these other platforms, PlayStation, Nintendo, what we have available by putting it on their console, right? Let's get them like really addicted to Hi-Fi Rush. Let's make them love that world, love the gameplay,
Yeah.
like love everything about it, so that when we release the next one on Xbox, they're either going to want to sub to Game Pass or, eventually bite the bullet and get a console, right? So I can play Hi-Fi Rush 2
Right.
or, whatever else, right? And so I think, a game like that, a game like Pentiment, I think kind of fits that profile as well. But I think those are the types of games I could see Xbox putting on these other consoles as sort of your sort of your bait, I guess, right? Like
Yeah,
you're trying to hook the other players to get them into your player base, and I don't think had a really great way to do that, especially when the games you're coming out with over the last couple of years. You know, you got Redfall, like,
yeah, that game will
um,
never come to anywhere else. They'll
come
forget
on,
about it.
yeah,
Um,
and like even Hi-Fi Rush itself, like despite the fact that it was a very well reviewed game, like it was a critical
yeah,
success. You know, I don't think people are going to jump shit for a smaller indie
it's a
game,
10-hour
right?
game, so you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah, so you know, especially when PlayStation and Nintendo both are coming out with great games that people who have those systems can already play, right? Like it's just not enough to draw people in. So I actually like this strategy from Xbox. I mean, if you're like a diehard Xbox fan, does this rub you the wrong way? Maybe, right?
Yeah,
Like I can understand that, but it's the thing that as someone who is generally like a PlayStation guy, you know, seeing games like Ratchet and Clank and God of War and The Last of Us like coming to PC now, you know,
Spider-Man.
yeah, Spider Man, exactly. You know, those are like the big games, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're not going to Nintendo and they're not going to Xbox. So, but just kind of like breaking out of the ecosystem a little bit is, you know, a little hard to swallow, but at the same time, it's like, hey, you know what? I love those games. They're great games. Like, let's just let people play the games, right?
Yeah.
I don't care enough about this stuff to really like say, no, like you don't get to play it because you're not part of it. Like that is not really big for me. So you know, the more people get to play awesome games is really like awesome in my opinion. So that's kind of how I'm viewing this news personally.
Yeah, and, yeah, at the same time, I'm thinking, like, why should this be surprising? Because Scott, you were at E3 2016, sitting near me and, Adam, who was there
Uh,
too, and
yeah,
they were talking
yeah,
about Xbox Play Anywhere.
yep,
And should
yep,
that really surprise us? It didn't say Xbox Play PC, it was Xbox Play Anywhere, so
right.
this was always the vision of Satya Nadella at Microsoft at top, like, he wants his anything Microsoft related, even the gaming division, to be everywhere possible.
Yeah,
That's kinda like his thing, right?
yeah. And I mean, like I said, it's about making money,
Yeah,
right? Like ultimately for these companies, like yeah, you know, they're going to tell you that oh, they want you to explore incredible worlds and to you know get involved with something that like really you know reaches you, whatever. But like, it's about making money, like and and you know if you can come with great ways to do that, then you're going to make more money and right. But um, when I do think this is a reaction to the lack of success that Xbox has probably had the last couple of years. If they were on par, or at least like within uh, shouting distance of Nintendo or PlayStation, I don't think they make this move.
right.
I think it is like a little bit of a desperation move, but at the same time, like I can't blame them, and I actually think it will probably be a pretty successful move
Yeah,
ultimately.
I think it could be. It was just a surprise at first, like, maybe
Yeah,
people were worried about their what they own on Xbox, like, will that be relevant in a few years? But it seems that
right.
Microsoft's still gonna work on some type of hardware device, maybe sort of like a Steam Deck, like their own type of Steam Deck, who knows, right?
Yeah, that's what they say, and like, hey, you know, I'll be interested to see sort of the next couple years how things pan out for them. I'll, you know, if you know we get another 6 or 8 months down the road and things still kind of seem to be in the same position, I wonder if they're gonna make another move like this.
Yeah, yeah. And with that, talking about Xbox and Halo, that leads us to the Jeff Steitzer interview. I hope you guys enjoy this interview. It was such an honor to have Jeff. I really would like to thank him for his time, and especially thank you to Rob Semsey over at who is the communications for Halo, and also Tim for getting us in contact with Jeff. And we talk about some interesting things about how, like, at one point, Microsoft, or no, or like Tom Cruise's agent tried to get someone to voice Cortana, and then like he goes into about that. Like Marty O'Donnell's like, no, we need to keep Jen Taylor, and Steve Downs as Master Chief for Cortana. Like there was some interest, from the other side of things, from like out in the outer world to get involved with Halo. But we talk a lot about his career and like what it's like to voice acting in the industry, and I hope you guys enjoy. Ladies and gentlemen, I am excited to welcome a very special guest to the Rectify Roundtable podcast. You may know him as the Halo announcer going overkill, triple kill, extermination. And his name is Jeff Steitzer. Jeff, first off, I hope I didn't do too bad and embarrass myself. And secondly, I hope you're doing really well.
You did not embarrass yourself at all. It always makes me giggle when I hear people doing me in a weird way. But yeah, I'm doing very well indeed. Thanks.
Yeah. So I guess to start off with everything, and how'd you get involved with Halo in the first place? And I know with Bungie being the developers of Halo originally, like, did you know anyone there?
No, I did not. Well, that's not true. As it turns out, I did know one of the sound designers, but I didn't know he was working on this game. That wasn't why I got the audition. I just got a call one day from my agent, Topo Swope, saying, "You have an audition at Microsoft." And I thought, okay. So I went out and I did the audition. And apparently everybody did the same audition, which is at least the guys must have all done the same audition. We all read Master Chief and we all did an alien, I guess. And then we all screamed like we were being, killed and destroyed. And so far as I know, that probably ended up in the game somewhere, but I've never really known for sure.
Yeah, with the amount of enemies and like levels have been throughout all the Halo games, it's probably been used somewhere, right?
It probably killed all of us off at some point.
Yeah, definitely. And I know you've had history with video game work, like working on other games aside from Halo, but Halo has like
Yep.
been your biggest thing. Like,
Yeah.
did you ever have an aspiration for video game work? Like when video games were starting to come about more?
Well, actually, video games are what got me into computers because I had an audition. It was actually going to be film sequences for a game called Phantasmagoria, and I didn't get the first one. I did get cast in the second one, but couldn't do it. And I sort of went, I should know something about these games. And so I bought my first computer. I took a class from a policeman in Magnolia in Seattle
Hmm.
who taught a bunch of old people who thought they couldn't work on computers. And I went, oh, this is easy. And the next thing I knew, I was sitting and watching video games and looking at things like Seventh Guest and Mist and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I was definitely interested. And whenever I had a chance to do one, I certainly always enjoyed it, whether it was many of the humongous games I did for kids like Pajama Sam, Spy Fox, Freddy Fish, or other Microsoft games. I did a bunch of
Hmm.
things. Yeah, I liked it. I like everything I do. The more different kinds of work I can do, the happier I am.
Yeah, for sure. And like, have you gotten offers to be in certain video games that you just had like to turn down?
No, no, I
Oh,
haven't.
okay.
Um, I, I, uh, I pretty much accepted anything that I've been asked to do. Um, yeah.
Like out of all the Halo games you've done, like what was probably maybe your favorite one as far as maybe, like the list of medals you've had to read out or like game modes?
Well, I mean, I guess I'd have to say probably the very first one simply because I'm pretty sure I did more recording for that game than I ever did again for any other game. It was the first one. It seemed like it went on for days. I don't know how long I recorded, but I know it was longer than I would eventually end up recording for many of the games. And it was also on the first game that we figured out the voice because I didn't know what I was doing when I first walked in. So
Right.
Marty O'Donnell and I kind of, well, how about a little monster truck rally? Okay, that's good. Now let's go back and you did that alien. Can you throw in a little bit of that? And it's like, okay, now pull back on the monster truck rally, all that kind of stuff. And we came up with something that we thought, okay, this seems pretty good. Who knew, that I'd be
Yeah.
doing it 23 years later, but
So
there
when you
it
were
is.
doing these, technically you were working with Marty O'Donnell? Is that right?
Marty O'Donnell was around.
Oh, okay.
Normally, what would happen is that I would go into the recording booth, and on the other side of the glass would be the writer and the engineer or sound designer. That was
Okay.
it, just two people.
Okay.
And Marty would come by just to see how things were going. Um, and so I had a chance to check in with him every time I went in for one of the Bungie games. Yeah.
Nice. And since you've been with Halo since like before the world maybe knew about it, like, being able to play it on the original Xbox, did you think it was even going to be that much of a success?
No,
No.
had no idea. Nobody had any idea.
Like,
Marty has said that, when they were working on it and they were getting ready to release, he said, if we sell 60,000 units, this is going to be a success. Well,
wow.
nobody had any idea at all. And for me, you got to understand, doing any kind of work like this, you're sort of a gun for hire. You go in, you do the work as well as you can. You try to please the clients that you're working for. That seemed to be the case here. And then you leave, and people don't call and say, "Hey, Jeff, these are the sales for this week." That
Right.
never happened. I didn't know until maybe the third game when I read in the paper that it had sold $175 million worth of the game on the first day in the US alone. I thought, oh, this is a big deal. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I know
That
now, but I didn't know then.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about. But so this might be, since you're a different type of voice actor, like you didn't do like, a necessarily a character. Like this was a character, but like, not a character at the same time. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, au contraire, as it turns out, I was just informed about a year ago. I went in to record, I think they
oh,
were calling them chapters for Infinite. And in this
oh,
chapter, my character was taken over by an AI. And I said to the guys, I said,
oh my
What
God.
what are you talking about? I'm not a character. And they went, "Oh no, you've always been a character." It's like, well, nobody told me I was a character. Oh yeah, you're the voice in Master Chief's head and blah blah blah. And I went, oh, okay. But
Okay.
I guess I just thought I was the announcer. But yeah,
Yeah, that's what everyone would think, right?
yes, I would think so. But in this one thing, there's this evil AI that basically takes over. I go the route of Hal in 2001. I think we might even have recorded me singing Daisy, Daisy. I don't know. I
Oh,
can't remember. But yeah, but mostly, yes, I am an announcer. And I tended for most of the time I've been working on the game to work alone.
okay. And when you say like the line like double kill and stuff like that, do you have to prepare like and do any necessary preparations for that?
Well, the folks at Bungie used to think I did. I come in and they say, "Jeff, do you want to listen to yourself from the last game?" And I would think to myself, "No, I think I know what I'm doing." But it's like, okay, sure. If they wanted me to hear myself, fine. And I'd listen to myself, and I thought, well, yeah, that's pretty much what I thought I was doing. So okay, and then I just launch into it. No, it's not really. No, there's no real preparation involved. I can pretty much do it at the drop of a hat.
Dang. That's awesome though. That would um so while you worked with Bungie for a number of years, around 2011 they start to transition to 343. Bungie goes on to Destiny, 343 takes over Halo. Were you worried like about your position in the Halo franchise, or like, worried in general, I guess, about Halo?
Well, no, not really. I was just waiting to find out if they were going to be using me any longer. I had heard some disquieting rumors that had been apparently some thinking about replacing Steve, Jen, and myself. I don't know how many of the other voices. The first game, it was almost entirely Seattle people. There were some Chicago folks, and of course Steve, but it was just local folks. And then after that became a big hit, they started looking around for much higher profile uh, actors.
Right.
And it's like, well, okay, I get that. But they kept coming back to us, so I sort of thought, well, I guess, they will, and I hope they would. But there was some talk, or at least some rumors that I was hearing that they were going to replace all of us, and as it turned out, that didn't happen. Although, and again, I don't know all the ins and outs of what's going on with 343, but I know for one of the iterations of the game, they offered other announcers. You could have other people besides me do it,
Wow.
and it's like, well, okay.
That would be weird to have a different voice that we're all so used to.
Well, it's interesting because I tend to be fairly philosophical about this. No job I've ever had lasts forever, and most of
Right.
them don't last past the one time you go in to record. There are no guarantees at all, you know. So you sort of just, try to take everything with as much equanimity as possible. I'm just delighted that they are still calling on me. I don't know if they will anymore. I don't know what's happening with the future of the game at this point. I have
Right.
no idea. So, we'll see what happens. I'm delighted to have been able to do it for all these years. It's wild to start to meet some of the fan base at conventions and gaming expos. That's
Mhm.
been mind blowing. Yeah.
At what stage, like, say, like, before Halo 4 was coming out, at what stage did you know, like, that about that game, like, where it was at when they asked you to record lines? Like, when a new Halo game, like, is, in fact, like, coming and you have to record something for it, like, I'm assuming it's probably late in development.
Yes, very much so.
It's probably, like,
Yeah,
close.
I think so. I mean, basically, what would happen? Well, I don't know. I see. I don't really know. I can't answer that question.
Right.
I know, for instance, that when Halo Infinite was being worked on, I was called in. It was in March of 2020, just before the lockdown. And when I went in to record for that game, Steve was there. He had flown in, I think, maybe from Florida. Jen was there doing motion capture. Bruce Thomas, who does Master Chief motion capture, was there. They were all doing, stuff that I would think was fairly early on, and they were getting me as well. So I don't know. I also know that I went in about a month before the game dropped
Oh,
to do
wow.
new stuff. So it's pretty fluid. And I don't know if there's a schedule. And I never told anything other than I'll hear from the agent who will say, got a call from the folks at 343. They want you to come in and record. Great. These are the dates. Will this work? I go, sure. And then I go in and record for as long as they need me. That's what we do.
Yeah. Do what we're told, right?
Yeah.
So going from Halo Reach into Halo 4, Halo Reach was obviously the previous game that released before Halo 4, even though Halo Reach was a prequel. Your voice sounded really different in Halo 4, and of course, this was 343's first game, and that had me worried about like, what are they doing with Jeff's voice? No, it's not like the same. It doesn't sound like Halo 3 or Halo 2 or Halo Reach. You know what I mean? Was there a reason why they definitely did an edit to your voice, right?
I don't know why. Well, no, they were actually asking me to do something a little bit different with my voice.
Oh, okay, so you were doing something different.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I'd always kind of done the, really kind of, that thing. And
Yeah.
they kept sort of pulling me back and pulling me back and pulling me back and pulling me back. And I thought, really? And then I was aware because it was sort of in the air that there were a lot of folks who were saying, bring back Jeff Steitzer. It's like, well, I hate to say it, but Jeff Steitzer never left. He's just again, doing what I was told. Um, and then I don't remember which game it was, but I finally said, could we maybe listen to one of the early games? And I did that on purpose because I just wanted to show that we had been doing something different and see, do you really not want that? So, in the more recent work that I've done, I think I've tried to skew a little bit more towards what we had done originally. But, again, they're the bosses, and I'm trying to do my best, according to what they're looking for.
Right. Um, I have another since you're a voice actor, do you this is something that I've always wondered. Do you think voice actors in general in video games like get enough respect or like they don't do you think they should get more compensated than what they maybe do now. I feel like the voice actors sometimes in video games don't get enough credit than they should. I think as they should, because they're essentially playing like iconic characters and stuff like that.
Well, I'll tell you something. This is a good example. This is a story I was told by Marty, so I have to believe it's true. Evidently, after the first game came out, all these Hollywood agents got in touch with Microsoft, and in particular, Tom Cruise's agent was my understanding, and uh, um, who was the woman? Their agents called and said, our clients would like to play Master Chief and Cortana, and Microsoft got
Oh,
pretty excited about that.
wow.
And they sort of put it to Marty, and Marty thought about it, and he said, "You know what? No, the reason the game clicked and why people love it so much, he thought, was because of what Steve and Jen had done. So it didn't, to him, make, oh, it was Julia Roberts. I think that was what it was. But it
Oh,
made no sense, to replace them. So he fought for them to stay in those roles. They did. Obviously, in the community itself, they know who Steve and Jen and I am, are. Um, but in terms of compensation, yeah, that would be great. It's always been pretty much a flat fee. For the longest time, there were no royalties like you'd have for a TV show or a film. You just got the one payment, and that was it. So the game could go on to make $1 billion, and you would just
hmm,
see that flat fee. Now,
wow.
I believe that SAG-AFTRA, the union that is supposed to be looking out on the out
Yes.
for this, who had originally sort of dismissed it like, "Oh, this is never going to amount to anything," I think they suddenly realized, "Oh, it has amounted to a lot." It's one of the biggest things in the entertainment industry. I believe now with new games, I think you get royalties, but I'm not
Well, that's good.
sure
It probably.
because it isn't retroactive. It's like all the people who did TV in the 1950s, they didn't get nobody went back and said, we should really pay you what you should
Yeah.
have been all along. So we don't. But
Yeah.
it's
That would
okay.
probably. Yeah, that would probably depend on how big the game is and how well they do.
Sure.
Uh, um, since obviously you were involved with Halo all these years, have you ever played Halo in the last 20 years?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I did.
Yes.
I'm the worst Halo player in the world. In fact,
Oh, same. We
I
both got
often
something in
tell
common. So.
yeah, I often tell people it's like, no matter how bad you think you are, trust me, I will be worse. And the very first time I played it, well, here's the reason I didn't play it for the first couple of games. I would get a game. I would be given a game after the, game came out. They would send me a game and they go, "Thank you so much for your work." And they'd send me a copy of whatever Halo was out. And I go, "Well, are you going to give me an Xbox?" And they were like, "No." And it's like, "Oh, well, I don't know what to do with this cartridge." And the reason I didn't go out and buy one is I have two kids. They were small. I had, I think, a Nintendo and maybe a PlayStation. And, I bought them two gaming systems. I just couldn't see my way to going out and getting an Xbox.
Yeah.
So I'd never played it. And then I happened to be in Utah and I was acting there. And one of the apprentices asked if I would like to come over for supper with his family. I said, sure. So on my day off, I went to the house. The family was lovely. We had a lovely meal. After which, one of the people said, "So, do you want to go downstairs and play some Halo?" And I realized I'd been conned, I'd been had. But I went, how hard can it be? So I went down into the basement and they had these big beanbag chairs on the ground that you would lie back on while you played. Everybody had their own, controller. And there was a screen that took up a wall. So we sat down and we started playing. My Master Chief is walking down a hill, and I thought, well, what else is there to see? So I turned to my right. No, there was a building. So I thought I'll walk over. There's a door in the building, and I walked over towards the door, and I overshot the door and landed in a corner of the building, and I couldn't get out. Nothing I did, I didn't know how to back up, I didn't know how to turn around, and the other people who were playing all just started shooting me, and it was like, "Well, what the f-" the hell? Anyway, and that was my first time playing Halo. I have played it once or twice since, and I'm no better than I was
Yeah,
then.
that's okay.
I don't have the hours and hours and hours. Well, I should put that differently. I'm choosing to use the hours and hours and hours it would take me to become even competent doing other things, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm terrible.
Nice. That's okay. I'm not. People will say I'm not the greatest Halo player either, even though I played hundreds of hours. Anyways, one of my last questions. You've had to have many people who maybe noticed you in public at like expos and stuff like that, or even like grocery shopping. I don't know, but like, what is the one of the weirdest things that someone has ever asked you to like say? I know you do the cameo stuff, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, if stuff is too weird, I just won't do it. I mean,
right. Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah, I'm very careful. I try to be very careful about what I say, but I get sent phrases I have no idea what they mean. Um, and it's hard to, pick out what are the weirder things I've been asked to
Right.
say. The more interesting sort of interactions, there have been a couple that have surprised me. One of them is there have been occasions when people realize who I am, and sometimes it is in the grocery store. Somebody will say, "Your voice sounds really familiar," and they'll say, do you do a game?" And I'll say, "Well, yeah, I do. I do Halo." And they said, "What do you do?" And I go, "Well, I'm the one that says double kill, triple kill." And I've seen to shake
Oh my god.
uncontrollably. Yeah. And it's like I'm not trying to do that, but and I kind of get it. One of the reasons that I try to be as open to fans as I possibly can be, and I try pretty hard. I grew up in Southern California and I was obsessed with Walt Disney, and all I wanted to do was, meet Walt Disney, tell him how, im- influential he'd been. I never found a way of doing that. There was, and I thought, if there are people out there whose lives have been impacted by the game and the work I do, and they say that it has, then it seems to me not an obligation, because that sounds like I'm forced to do it. It sounds like a privilege to try to be there to communicate with fans, to fans.
Mhm.
Whenever I can do that, I do that, you know,
Yeah.
whether it's at conventions or some of the stories have been just heartbreaking. There was one young man who I met, I believe, in Phoenix, and he told me his story, and it involved a childhood filled with abuse, and that the only thing that kind of spared him from the misery of his existence was being able to go hide in his bedroom and play Halo.
Wow.
And, he identified my voice with that. And he was weeping while he told me this. And I said, "You're not still at home, right?" And he said, "No, as soon as I could leave, I left." He said, "But, you got me through." And you think, okay, this is not my usual job.
Yeah,
So
that's those stories, that's like a good story, like, some people, I get that's something that you don't when you do the job, you don't really think
you
of.
never think of that. You don't go in and
Yeah.
think, "How can I change a life today?"
Yeah,
It's
that's a
like,
really good
how can
story.
I yeah, and the fact that this has done that, not just me, obviously, Steve and Jen, and, much to my surprise, I don't know why it never occurred to me, but, over the years, I've come to realize that we've been a big part of a lot of people's lives, and, that is both incredibly gratifying, but also unbelievably humbling, you know?
So that's all I have for you, Jeff. I just have one more request, if it's
Sure.
possible. If you could say, "Thanks for listening to the Rectify Roundtable" in the iconic voice of
Okay, let me
yours.
see if I can get here. Thanks for listening to the Rectify Roundtable.
That is perfect. We are going to end on that note. Once again, Jeff, I appreciate that so much.
You
I
are very
really do.
welcome. Yeah.
Uh, I love the work you do, and
Oh,
thank
thanks,
you.
man.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that interview. And what was really funny about that is that after that ended, like that conversation could have went on for like an hour that him and I were having off the recording because we were talking about the Halo TV show, and I was actually just watching it before we we're recording our segment here, episode
Mhm.
5. And one of the big debates was, and I'm like Team Helmet, and is that Master Chief rarely wears his armor and he doesn't rarely wears his helmet. And Jeff kind of agreed that you can still show emotion through a helmet. Like Mandalorian is just a perfect example
Right.
was it Pedro is it Pedro?
Yeah.
Pedro Pascal, The Last of Us? But
Yeah.
so yeah, I like and Pablo Schreiber was saying to IGN in an interview like before season 2 that the audience it can better connect with a character with his helmet off, and I completely disagree that because I've been playing Halo my entire life, and I could still
Right.
see the emotion of Master Chief and things like that. So there's some things in the Halo show that I don't agree with. But season 2 is better than season 1, but there still could be some improvements. It's not The Last of Us. The Last of Us is an absolute masterpiece.
Oh my gosh, that show was so good, dude.
It was it's so good, and sadly season 2 go until next year. So
Yeah, it's a ways off.
on that note, we are going to end episode 1 of the Rectify Roundtable. Thanks so much for listening, and make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We look forward to seeing you with episode 2 with another interview and more topics coming your way.